In this video, I'm going to talk a lot more in depth about NGons, how to identify them and how to deal with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Z, or if you're on a Mac, you can Command Z to undo and step back to where I just had the two edge loops, the one running through the center this way and the one running through the center that way. I'm now going to use the multi-cut tool to create two additional sections. So holding down the Shift key, and let me take my snap step to 50%. And I want to correct something. I said 0 to 100 in the last video. It's actually 1 to 90 within there. But if I hold down the Shift key to snap that exactly to 50% and keep holding it down, do that, I'll hit Enter. Oh, and I actually got it backwards. Let me do here 50 and 50 there, and then split it in the center here. I've now created some NGons. So right now, this face is 5-sided. It's got 1, 2, 3, and then 2 on the top, 4, 5. And so this becomes a problem. This is not clean geometry. And so same thing here. This is 5 sides and 5 sides, and that creates other issues. Now, there are other times where you may not notice that you have an NGon quite as easily as this. So, for example, I'm going to delete this edge, and I'm going to cut in some additional geometry. Right now, this is magnetizing to right there, but sometimes you may not notice it as much, like maybe you're trying to line it up and you accidentally get it off. Unless you're really close, if you're just grabbing one side to the next and it doesn't happen to snap in, you can close it, and for the most part, that looks right. There may be also other cases where you've cut something and you go, wow, that was a horrible idea. I shouldn't have put edges there. And you come in and you delete these edges, and it looks fine. Well, here's a way to check for sure that you don't have any NGons. If you come to Mesh, Cleanup, so once again under the Modeling File menu, Mesh, Cleanup, and you pull up this menu for the cleanup options. What you can do is do Select Matching Polygons, because you don't want it to clean it up automatically for you. You want to be able to have control over what you're modeling, but you do Select Matching Polygons, and you turn on Faces with more than 4 sides. And so that'll find anything that is an NGon, which is a face with more than 4 sides. And if I hit Apply, you can see that these faces turned orange. Now what that means is that each of these faces is an NGon. Some are very obvious, like this is obviously an NGon. This one's obviously an NGon. Same thing with that one and this one. But the other ones aren't as clear cut unless you know what happened, which we do because you just watch me do it. So for example, why would this be an NGon? So if I look at the vertices and I look around and everything looks good, if it looks like it should, then what you start doing is you start pulling it apart and actually grabbing a vertex at a time and moving it to see if anything changed. If it doesn't, Control Z. Grab another one, pull that. And so a lot of times it's just fiddling with it until you actually can track down whatever the issue is. You see how that moves without. And you saw me do it, but sometimes we do this by accident. And so you may need to recut geometry, or you may need to have some other type of repair. In this case, what I can do is I can delete that edge and make sure that I drag all the way to the vertice there before I close it, and then that works. But I'm still going to have problems. So if I hit Apply again, you can see that this one's lit up still. Now let's take a look at what's causing that in some of these others. Up here where I put in an edge, I deleted the edges, but when you delete an edge, it does not remove the vertices. So if I go to Vertex, you'll see that I still have these 3 vertices that were created. So if I hit backspace, that will actually remove them. The same thing is true right here. Even though it's close, there's actually a second vertex still there. So I can select that, hit backspace to remove it. And so now if I hit Apply, you'll see that it's only the ones that are obviously NGons because they've got the edges and nothing going through, and the other ones have disappeared. So it's just stuff to look for because you don't want to leave NGons. NGons are not clean topology and they're not clean for your geometry. They can create a lot of issues. So make sure to go through and do the cleanup. I'll keep this up for a second just so you can see it, and we'll use it to check stuff later. But right now I'm going to lift this up because I'm going to turn this into a very simplified house. I will lift this up, so this is the roof that's going to tie in. But you see there's some issues. Like right here, there's this weird shaping as it's trying to calculate how this should work. Well, there's a couple different ways to solve these problems. One is that I could just, cut across, and suddenly I don't have NGons. I've got a quad and a triangle, and on this side, a quad and a triangle. And I can do the same thing here. I can take this over to a corner, and that gives me a quad and a triangle, and I do a quad and a triangle here. And then if I hit apply, you notice that it deselects the object. That means there's no NGons on it. So great, we're clean, except we're not. This is technically a clean object, but it's also not efficient. Because of the way our workflows have advanced in 3D production in the last 10, 15 years even, using triangles all the time is not necessarily efficient. When I was working on some DS titles, yeah, everything needed to be triangles. We had to pay very close attention to how high the geometry count was, and we were worried about triangles, not quads. But as we've advanced to a point where we can do very high resolution sculpting, when we can do things like these sub-D surfaces, it's more important to actually keep everything in quads so that you can very quickly and efficiently add in new edge loops and create new forms and make adjustments and changes on the fly. It's also important for when you go to advanced techniques such as doing normal map creation and things like that. When you need to have subdivided surfaces, if you have triangles in there, it doesn't properly split it up and subdivide it. It gets these little memory sinks where you get the weird loops that go to a central point, and it takes up all of the space. So it's very important right now to not use triangles. One way that this could still work, by the way, if I raise this up a little bit higher, it creates another issue. So even though this would technically be a quad right here, it's also got this concavity right here, which creates another issue. And so you want your quads not to have concavity on the edges. So I'm going to take that back a little bit. And you can also add this in, and yay, now I've got 3 triangles across the top so that we don't have the same issue we had a second ago where it was folding over, but it's actually got these edges. But this isn't really the most efficient way to do it. So I'm going to end the video here for now. Once again, this was talking about NGons. You want to be able to clean things up. So if I once again hit apply, no NGons left, so this is technically clean, but not really what we're shooting for. But at least now you're aware of what NGons are, you know to watch for them. But in the next video I'm going to come back and we are going to look at how to make this a lot more clean. We're also going to talk about hard and soft edges.